forgot one announcement because Donna told me this morning, and I wanted to share with it because it's pretty exciting. You want to tell them, Donna, so you can be accurate? And I just want to say thank you to Donna and Jerry because they do such wonderful work for our community. Thank you so much. So, this is the part where I introduce the laughter is the best medicine because it's just, we just need to kind of lighten up now and then a little bit. And I had kind of run out of jokes and people started sending me things. This was one that where's Sally? Oh, it's yours. Sally sent me. It says, lawyers should never ask a Georgia grandma a question if they are not prepared for the answer. In a trial, a small-town southern prosecuting attorney called his first witness, an elderly grandmother, to the stand. He approached her and asked, "Mrs. Jones, do you know me?" She responded, "Why, yes, I do know you, Mr. Williams. I've known you since you were a boy, and frankly, you've been a big disappointment. You lie, you cheat on your wife, and you manipulate people and talk about them behind their backs. You think you're a big shot when you haven't the brains to realize you'll never be anything more than a paper pusher. Yes, I do know you." The lawyer was stunned. Not knowing what to do, he pointed across the room and said, "Mrs. Jones, do you know the defense attorney?" Again, she replied, "Yes, I know him, Mr. Bradley, since he was a youngster. He's a lazy, bigoted drunk who can't build a relationship with anyone, and his law practice is one of the worst in the state, not to mention he has cheated on his wife with 3 women, including your wife." The defense attorney was completely freaked out. And at this point, the judge interrupts and says, "Come here, both lawyers over here." And he looks at him sternly and says, "If either one of you ask her if she knows me, I'm sending you both to jail." Nobody will escape this woman's wrath. This week, we continue with Unity Principles, number 4 from this book, The 5 Principles. And it states about prayer that prayer is the creative thinking that heightens the connection with God-mind and therefore brings forth wisdom, healing, prosperity, and everything good. In her book, Reverend Ellen, she subtitles Principle 4 as Communion with God. I said, we're all familiar with the word communion, but I'm just curious about things all the time. And so I said, well, let me look it up to see exactly what it says about communion. And it says this: the sharing or exchanging of intimate thoughts and feelings, especially when the exchange is on a mental or spiritual level. I said, that is a good term, communion with God, to use then. Especially, but how about if we replace the word God with Principle 1, which reminds us that God is all there is. So let's try it that way. Then it would be the sharing or exchanging of intimate thoughts and feelings, especially when the exchange is with all there is. That has a different feel to it. It really does. And the comparison that came to me was just, coming up to a kitchen stove with a bunch of pots and pans and just kind of start tasting things, and you go like, "Oh, that's pretty good." And then you get one and go like, "Ooh, that's really good." I kind of got that feeling with that expression. And and the difference in that feeling is because the universe speaks to us through our feelings, and we speak to the universe through our feelings as well. And so, now what do you suppose the difference is from one explanation to the other? It is that we carry with us default definitions, default feelings regarding words from our subconscious mind. And that's why I've been so, diligent about reminding us about the language, about trying to move on to new language. Because as metaphysics books reminds us that when we use the old language, it's like having one foot stuck in the mud and trying to move forward, and you don't have any traction on that leg. And it's not our fault, it's our subconscious. It's so powerful. I've told you before, 95% of the time we're operating from our subconscious. So all these feelings that are associated with these words, they just come up, they just do. So we've got to update our personal software. Now that we're computer, age, I kind of, some of the terminology makes sense. Update your software. Using stuff from Windows, 7 or something. You need to update. Anyway, the chapter begins. Prayer would seem to be the simplest and most familiar of spiritual concepts. Even little children understand it. Prayer has been practiced by human beings throughout the ages in many different forms, addressed to gods of many different names. And yet this is where confusion usually sets in regarding the 5 principles. And I thought, confusion? Confusion about prayer? What's confusing about prayer? You talk to God, you ask for something, and sometimes the petition is granted, sometimes the petition is not granted. Isn't that the way it works, prayer? No, that's not the way it works at all for us in unity. That is an old view of God, of an anthropomorphic external God that is fickle and capricious. So before we go any further, let me cover a couple of major distinctions between unity's approach to prayer and traditional approach to prayer. First of all, in unity we use what we call affirmative prayer. Affirmative prayer. Someone new to unity might ask, what is affirmative prayer? Well, let me tell you what affirmative prayer is not. It is not a petition. It is not a request. It is not asking for something that may or may not happen. And we're beginning to reconcile that whole concept with our quantum physics understanding of the many worlds theory. Because the many worlds theory says that everything is this quantum soup type thing, and we pluck whatever it is that we want out of this soup and form it through our consciousness, through our focus, into whatever it is that we want to express. Now, in the old language, they didn't talk that way. They didn't understand this stuff about quantum physics. So what Jesus told the people was, it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. He used that term, that phrase. And what do you suppose that phrase is saying? It's saying exactly the same thing. To give you the kingdom, the entire kingdom. You can have anything you want. It is yours there for the taking. You don't have to earn it. It's not contingent upon anything. It is just simply yours because you are, I don't want to use this word, but I'm going to use it anyway, a child of the universe. And thus, you inherit all this. It all belongs to you. It's the same concept, just different terminology. And the idea, this is where unity is so different from all the other traditions. The idea that we have that much power to choose anything that we want is admittedly a very foreign concept to us. It really is. I mean, you sit down and think about it, and that you have that kind of power, you say, yeah, I know, the Reverend tells me this now and then, but it's hard to accept because we come from a place, at least I did, that you are considered a lowly creature, a sinner, default by nature. And so the idea that I have this kind of power is like, what? It doesn't seem, it just doesn't jive. It just doesn't jive between them. And then we have the idea that we need someone, an external savior, to come and to save us from this quicksand, this mud that we're in. But the irony is that this savior that we decided to choose upon together collectively told us just the opposite. He said, everything that I did, you can do, and greater things you can do. Thus, he was telling us that he was fundamentally not any different from us. only in expression, only in the level of understanding he had. So he came to show us what it is that we could be. That's what Jesus did. And let me say something else about affirmative prayer and scripture. It is written in Mark 11:24. It says, "Therefore I tell you, whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have received it, and it will be yours." Wow. Believe that you have received it, and it will be yours. Wow. So we found this new tool, this affirmative prayer, this power that we have. But that doesn't mean that we've mastered it, and I've said that before. The book says we don't create perfectly well. We don't create perfectly yet. We don't even create very well most of the time. But the knowledge that thoughts and feelings determined our reality lifts us up to a new level of human awareness. So we found this toy, this power that we have, but we haven't mastered it yet. And even the metaphysics book tells us about affirmative prayer. It is a 5-step process. And affirmative prayer is the act of claiming and declaring what already is in potential, waiting for you to create. It's there. It's all up to you. And unity, affirmative prayer is not unique to unity. We didn't make this up. I said it's been talked about for forever. We've just taken this idea to heart and trying to come to really understand the power. We're planting these powerful ideas into our minds and hoping that they really take off this time. Hopefully they will. And we're getting there. And the book reinforces what I just said on page 100 about limitations. It says, most of us have trouble believing that the limits in our lives are self-imposed. And the truth is we live in a universe of unlimited abundance and are entitled to more than we can imagine as soon as we are ready to receive it. It is there for your taking. It says, we can choose to stand under this waterfall of blessing with a thimble or a wash tub. I like that imagery. Standing in this waterfall of blessing, you can just picture it coming right down, and your consciousness can be either a thimble and you're gathering this much of the water, or it can be a big old tub and gathering that much of the water. It all depends on where your consciousness is. I really like that idea. It also says a prayer moves us into a state of allowing and non-resistance. Another good imagery, here we go. It says, we don't receive an answer to prayer as much as we let the answer into our lives. Oh, I like that. It is like opening the shades to let the sunshine stream in. The sunshine was always there, but we were blocking it with the shades, the shade of our consciousness. And so over and over, we keep hearing that we live in this abundant universe, and whatever limitation exists is a self-imposed limitation. These are strange ideas to get, but this is what Jesus was telling us. He said, the idea that we could move mountains, that we could walk on water, that we could do, and the ultimate one, that we could rise from death. These are powerful ideas that we have just not taken to heart very well. I like that Reverend Paul Smith, in the first book I did about integral Christianity, when he used the term baby divinities, when he said we're baby divinities, and I kind of like that. We're still unfolding, but understand this: in potential, we are full and complete, but in expression, we still have to go through the process. And really, Jesus did too. If you notice that Jesus, he didn't start his ministry till he was 30. And if you read some of the I was talking to Anne about the Gnostic Gospels and stuff. Some of those Gospels, like about Jesus' infancy, talk about he was kind of there was, I don't know why I'm saying this, but anyway, there was one instance in where he was playing with a boy or something, and he pushed him, and he fell they were on top of a house or something, and he fell and he died. And then the mother comes along and said, "Why did you kill him?" And she said, "I didn't. We were playing and he fell." So reportedly he tells the little kid, get up, and tell her what happened. And the little boy rises. So he was still, he had this, it's kind of strange. Okay? He had this power, but he didn't know how to, like what I just said. We found this tool, but we don't know how to use it yet completely. But little things come out like that. So it's an interesting story. Whether it happened or not, I don't know. But Jesus offered us many, many demonstrations that tell us that everything can be overcome. Everything. The restriction is not in the universe. It is in how we see the universe and in our understanding of it. The book says the process of affirmative prayer starts with a shift in consciousness. A shift in consciousness. And I was telling Elle yesterday, shift happens. It just does. I mean, shift in consciousness. You see how everything always comes back to us, though? Do you notice that? It all comes back to us and about us doing the work, which is going to be actually Principle 5 next week. It's actually doing the work, getting going. So that's why it is so important to always be open and receptive to new ideas. Because if our unfolding depends on our openness, and we're not willing to be open, well, what does that say? We're kind of stuck. As they say, change is your friend. Embrace it. Another really big part of affirmative prayer is that the believing process is part of the process. Braden talks about this as well, Greg Braden. He says, it's number one. If you don't believe, it's not going to happen. That's step number one, period. And I showed you an example last week about when the two blind men came up to Jesus and they told him, Master, or Lord, will you heal us? And the first thing out of his mouth was, do you believe? And they said, yes, we believe. And they were healed because of their belief. And so that raises the question, did Jesus heal them? Or were they healed by their change in consciousness? Because was he a facilitator, in other words? And it's an interesting question because Reverend Ellen talks about this. She says, why pray for others if the change has to come from within? It's a good question. So it's kind of one of those, are you the healer or the facilitator, or is the person the healer? And I think like everything else, it's like the answer is yes. I have a whole list of things. Is it creationism or is it evolution? The answer, yes. Is it this or is it that? The answer, yes. It's always never one or the two. So it all comes back to, who are we really? Now I have to share something that Alice Cooper sent me this week. And it says, who are we really? He says, we are slowed down sound and light waves, a walking bundle of frequencies tuned into the cosmos. We are souls dressed up in sacred biochemical garments, and our bodies are the instruments through which our souls play their music. What an interesting thought. So who do you suppose said that? Some woo-woo person? Because, you know, we always get accused of being woo-woo. So was it a woo-woo person? Well, I'll let you decide. The author of that is actually Albert Einstein. Not exactly a woo-woo person. Read it again? Yes. All right, let me see. We are slowed down sound and light waves, a walking bundle of frequencies tuned into the cosmos. We are souls dressed up in sacred biochemical garments, and our bodies are the instruments through which our souls play their music. Albert Einstein. So I read that and I said, it's time to wake up, earthlings. No, really. It reminds me of the first day in boot camp. 4 o'clock in the morning, instructor comes in, all the lights go on, and they say, wake up, you have entered another universe, my friend. That's exactly what we need to do. We need to wake up and enter a new universe, a new way of seeing this. So why do prayers work for others? Does it work? Again, it could be yes, it could be no. This is an interesting thing. She says that we are bundles of energy, and we can direct our energy towards an intention because we're all bundles of energy. However, if the recipient is not receptive to the intention, then it is of little value. She goes on to say that if the person has made a soul decision, for example, to move on, that the prayer probably is not going to work. But if the person has made a decision to stay and to carry on the work here on planet Earth, then that healing energy is of great use to the person. So I thought that was interesting. She said because the universe responds to vibrational energy. But again, it all comes back to us. It all comes back down to us. And then she tells, because, tradition tells us, well, just surrender to God. And that's kind of a vague statement. She says about surrendering to God, surrendering to God is not an abdication of power, throwing up your hands and saying, you take over. This is powerful. She says, surrendering to God is being God. Whoa. You want me to be God? To myself. You know what I mean, right? I mean, that to connect with that one source and be that one source. Otherwise, what does it mean? It doesn't mean anything. She said to live as Jesus did from an inner well of compassion and equanimity that can carry us through the most difficult of challenges. As a final comment on affirmative prayer, there's another distinction that I want to make before I close out the thing. And in unity, you notice, we don't pray for people, we pray with people. And if you ever call Silent Unity, they answer the phone and say, how may I pray with you? Is what they're trained to say. And why is this distinction important? It is because if I'm praying for you, that kind of makes a presumption of some sort that I have something that you don't have. And that's not true. That somehow you're in need of me. And maybe you are as a support unit. But ultimately, we are all the same essence. Jesus said it. And we all have the same power, even to heal. So affirmative prayer lies in believing that you already have this. So remember that you can. Be it done to you as you believe. I'd like to close out. I invite you just to share this short little meditation. Listen to the words. In the stillness of my heart, I turn to God within. In my heart, I know my oneness with the divine. In my heart, I fear nothing, want nothing, lack nothing. In my heart, I rest in the awareness of God's unyielding presence. And I take pleasure in our communion. My soul is the divine. My higher self is my access to God, the Christ in me. I am an opening for God on the earth, and I let divine light and love flow through me into the world. I surrender to this knowing, to this purpose, and to the blessings that flood my being as I allow the flow of Spirit in and through me. And so it is. Affirmative prayer. Thank you. Now it's time to bring our children back. I do believe. Oh, not yet. No, we're gonna do the ceremony. Yes. Okay. Let's prepare for that. That's correct. It is a special Sunday today.
Yes, it is.
Man, a little bit bigger print.
Oh,
That's helpful.
yes, it is. Okay, there you go. Okay, go ahead.
So today we welcome 11 new members who have made the commitment to join Unity Spiritual Center, Georgetown. Each of them brings unique gifts. Each of us brings unique gifts, experiences, and strength to enrich and bless our congregation. We believe they are guided to this place at this time to advance their spiritual journey, and that they will find here the message, soul friends, and inspiration to help light their way. We open space for them to find their place among us and become part of the flow of giving and receiving that keeps our spiritual community vital and thriving. So, as Liz calls out their names,
As I call out your name, yes, go ahead. Please come up, and so we can welcome you. Please come forward. We'll have you all stand right here to the side until everybody's up here. Okay, so if you have a tendency to want to applaud, save it till the end, okay? So our first new member is Bonnie Bartman, and I believe she's in Hawaii, helping a friend through a difficult time. Barbara Jean Bukak. Is Barbara Jean here? Buchak? And she's not here today? Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Okay. Well, let her know we have something for her when she feels better. Debbie Durr. Dolores Bailey. Yes. And if you'll notice, yellow roses symbolize friendship and joy. While they used to represent jealousy in the Victorian era, they have become more associated, I can't read this, you can read it, with delight, affection, warmth, and most especially spirituality. So they were very appropriate for today. Shawea Jones. Oh, okay. Judy Neasley. Jill Koch. Is Jill here this morning? Oh, there you are. Kaylin Lyon. Oh, there you are back there. Barbara L. Michelle. Ellen Warren. And last but not least, Catherine Wartz. Will you join us now? New members, will you join us with open minds and hearts
Support our community with your unique gifts and strength and help us to move forward to manifest our vision and mission. Thank you. Members of the congregation, will you accept and welcome these new members as friends and spiritual companions? Will you support them in their spiritual growth and join your strengths with theirs to manifest our vision and mission?
We will.
Now we will all affirm together our vision and mission statements. Are they up?
No, I missed that point. Okay.
I'll
So
just read it.
We'll read it.
Centered in God, we co-create a world of love, peace, and abundance. We are a thriving spiritual community, inspiring and empowering individual and global transformation as exemplified by the life and the teachings of Jesus. New members, welcome home. Welcome to Unity Spiritual Center, Georgetown.